Te lo dije. A ti nada más.
And welcome to the third artist talk of BredaPhoto. My name is Christine Baan. I'm a curator, editor, and sometimes moderator in the field of art and architecture. And I have a special connection with the exhibition China Imagined that will be the topic of today's show for several reasons. Between 2004 and 2016, I traveled frequently to China for my work. And in 2006, I curated the exhibition China Contemporary Visual Culture for the Netherlands Photo Museum. And this was also aimed at conveying a sense of daily life in China at that time. At the end of this show, this was 2006, I met Ruben Lundgren, who had just finished his studies, one of the curators of now this exhibition China Imagined, for the first time when we were moderating a public talk with Wasink Lundgren about their Empty Bottles project. And soon after, Ruben moved to China to study at CAFA, Central Academy of Fine Arts, and we would see each other now and then in Beijing with common friends. So I'm happy and excited to have this talk now about the fascinating exhibition China Imagined, which he made for BredaPhoto together with Chinese co-curator Yining. We will be speaking to Ruben and Yining shortly. They are with us from China via Zoom, and I'm waving at them now. And then I will introduce them properly. But first I want to introduce you to somebody who is sitting at the table with me. Xu Xiaoxiao. She's one of the photographers participating in the exhibition, and the only one of them who can be with us live today, magically circumventing the corona limitations, because she actually lives and works in the Netherlands. And sadly, Ruben and Yining had to stay in China because, of course, travel is now restricted. Photographer Xu Xiaoxiao was born in Xinjiang and raised in Wenzhou in the eastern province of Zhejiang in China. Her hometown has the nickname Little Europe, because many of the Chinese in Europe migrated from this region for economic reasons in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Xiaoxiao's family set foot in the Netherlands in the 80s, inspired by the dream of a better life, and she followed them in 1999 when she was 14. You graduated from Photo Academy in Amsterdam in 2009, and since then have been working on personal projects. In 2016, Xiaoxiao published Aeronautics in the Backyard, a project that won numerous prestigious book awards over the last couple of years. By photographing locations, people and objects that arouse confusing and alienating feelings, she manages to find the balance between her origins and her present life. So we will have a quick conversation now, and we'll have a longer conversation later. But we're just wondering how spending the first half of your life in China and the second half in the Netherlands has changed your view of China.
Mm-hmm. It means that my identity can't be defined straightforwardly anymore, and I have become both an insider and an outsider.
We will come back to that.
Yes.
Perspective, I think, throughout our talk this afternoon. It will be one of the themes of our discussion. But now, first, we will meet the two curators. Ruben Lundgren, who is joining us from Beijing, and Yining, who is joining us from Tianjin, the vast harbor city directly eastwards from Beijing, which together with neighboring city Hebei is developing into a mega city cluster. So basically, you're now both living in the same town. Ruben, you are now Beijing-based, but you graduated from the University of Arts Utrecht in 2005 and moved to China soon after, where you finished your master's degree at the Central Academy of Fine Arts. You made a name with the conceptual photography duo Wasink Lundgren, with publications as Empty Bottles and Tokyo Tokyo in 2010, and Foam showed a retrospect of your works in 2013. Your projects often develop from small observations or humorous twists from everyday life, combining a social antenna with the interest in how photography medium can deform reality. Ruben now works as a photographer for the Dutch newspaper, the Volkskrant, and as an independent curator of Chinese photography. Together with Martin Parr, you co-edited the Chinese photo book, and with Timothy Pruss, you published Menu, a tasty collection of Chinese vernacular food photography. So Ruben, let's start with the beginning. Why did you move to China in 2006? And even more importantly, why did you stay? What keeps you there?
Well, I finished my study in Utrecht at the Art Academy in Utrecht, and I wanted to do a master. And I made some friends in 2006, and one of them suggested, like, yeah, you can also study here, right? You can do your master of photography here. And I thought it was such a crazy idea, but when I thought about it again, I thought, like, yeah, why not? I had a good feeling about it. I was introduced, and I thought, yeah, I can do this. So I had a very good feeling about it, and I just followed it. So I did not think about it too much. And I enjoyed it ever since. So I never saw any reason to move somewhere else.
Right. And you studied as a photographer. You're still working as a photographer, but you have developed a very strong practice as a curator of exhibitions, of photo books. How did that come about? What is your interest in that field?
Yeah, it's quite simple. Like, one thing led to the other. So I'm a photographer. I like to make photography books, and together with Martin Parr, I started to collect photography books as well, and we made a history of that of Chinese photo book publishing, and that came out of my own interest of making photo books myself. So that was a very simple one. And about a year and a half ago, I got the question from BredaPhoto that they were interested to show Chinese photography. And I thought, like, yeah, why not? I like that idea. And I basically asked Yining, like, what do you think? I mean, maybe we can do something together on this.
And so that's how it started. That is how it came about. And you have chosen an interesting title, China Imagined. I visited the exhibition yesterday, and I actually came back with the impression that it was more about real China. So how did you come up with that title? And what does it mean in the context of that?
We did discuss the title quite a bit. I think the more important part is that we really like to show photography that maybe not be recognized as, oh, that's also in China, something different, something that you might not expect. And Yining actually came up with this idea as well of how Western minds, European travelers or businessmen have imagined China over the years, and that imagination of China became a reality as well for the European minds, right? So that distance between the real China and the China that is, imagined through different countries, that is something that we were both fascinated by. And in the exhibition, we were able to play with these ideas of the real China.
When I think you have included in your presentation one of the images of the church and the floor plan. How is it to curate this exhibition from afar? How do you decide? How did you work on this?
Well, it's very simple. I mean, I believe it's been a while, but I think I just called up Yining and we had a cup of coffee, and we said, listen, this is an opportunity. Let's just start with projects that we both think like, oh, it would be so cool to show this and that photographer or this and this project, and let's pile them up and see what we get, right? So see the long list of projects that both excite us. And she made some very good introductions. I hopefully made some introductions to her, and we took it from there. So it was this huge pile of great photography projects and great photographers that we started off with.
Okay, well, let's continue that conversation. Let's bring Yining into the conversation. Otherwise, we're talking about her and not with her. Yining graduated from the London College of Communication, and for over a decade has been working independently, specializing in photographic and visual art. Her practice is principally focused on the way in which photography is able to freely straddle the boundaries of fine art, responding to and raising questions about contemporary, historical, and social issues through interdisciplinary means. These curatorial projects have been held in museums, galleries, and other institutes in both China and Europe. And among her most recognized projects are Photography in the British Classroom, 2016, The Port in the Image, 2017, and Abode of Anamnese, 2019. Most recently, she curated the exhibition Between Mountains, Hills and Lakes for the Design Society in Shenzhen. So, Yining,
Yep.
good to see you there.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? In a different way, I think, from Ruben and Xiaoxiao, you also straddle two cultures, because you have also done your main studies in the West, and I believe that you still, travel a lot from China to the West and vice versa, and have also curated exhibitions with European photographers, for example, Swiss photographers. So how has, in your case, this, let's say, influence from two different cultures informed your curatorial eye? Are you conscious of maybe looking from one perspective or the other as you are working, or is it a more fluid thing?
I think at the moment everything is quite fluent. So I'm working with both Chinese and European, but also the artists across the world, because I really think this is global time that art and photography and everything can merge together. And I grew up in the mainland of China, but I went to London back in 2008 when exactly, I think Ruben went and came to China, right? So it's really interesting that I grew up with the artists and also like internationally, we coming from everywhere basically, and we all went to the art school, and we all looking at probably the same books. I mean, so I met a lot of artists through different opportunities. So it's kind of spontaneously I want to working with them and trying to find good opportunity for showing works from the European artists and bring the work to China. But also, for example, like BredaPhoto is a good platform for me and Ruben to build up this bridge to show the amazing practices from Chinese photographers over the last 10 years. So this is quite fluent in my life. Like it's quite interesting to looking back for that 10 years. Like international travel has become more easy for every one of us. Yeah.
Yeah, you're saying actually, and Ruben mentioned it before, that you have this sort of ties of friendship and let's say similar interests with a whole generation of artists, of Chinese artists, and that you also had an interest of showing this generation in particular in BredaPhoto at the moment. And this was probably one of the things that informed your choices.
Yeah, we had some discussions on what kind of artists and who interested us most, but then we all listed the one who grew up with us over the last 10 years, who are really active in build up this communication through their work to communicate with the society. And for example, I think a lot of young like Chinese photographers, they are really interested in their own life, their own experiences living in this time. They are looking at their like environment, like issues, other than traveling to very far away places, to using this kind of cases to document the poverty or other stuff. They are more interested in their own experience living in China. So this is a decision making that we had, which we not only choose Chinese photographers, but we also included some other practices, like practitioners who working in China over the last 10 years to document the whole changes.
Yeah, because then we are also moving from, let's say, which artist photographers you are showing to what stories they are actually telling. How would you define the vision of China presented in the exhibition? What was important for you to show, and what impression do you expect visitors to take home from it? So if we move now to the content, why did you choose these stories?
Yeah.
Because this generation you talk about still is, you know, maybe hundreds of people and maybe dozens of very good photographers, but you made choices within that. So why did you choose these stories in particular?
And after we're having a cup of coffee, we want to show the richness and the diversities of Chinese society. And then, like both of us, as Ruben said, we listed the artists which interested us most. And then we did have, at the very beginning, we had this theme-based comparison. We want to show the complexity of the society, which we're having the photograph from, for example, like Luo Yang, like Ren Hang, who did their
we see a photo behind us here.
To picturing the youth. To picturing the youth and subculture, young people living in China, but also we're having, for example, we're having some project showing the people living, like Xu Xiaoxiao, and she's taking a photograph of young people living in the rural areas. So this all brings this like conflicts in between this exhibition. So we are expecting the audience, not only like from Breda, from Europe, from Netherlands, to feel this kind of complexities other than a really flat impression of China.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I think that's really very clear and also interesting that you're saying it's more layered, it's more complex maybe than presumably the idea a lot of people have about China if they only follow, let's say, mainstream media in a sense. And you must have also discussed, Ruben, together with the Yining, what would be, let's say, an expectation in the Netherlands, given a lot of the reporting about China, which is mainly politically focused, that there would be a political angle, let's say, towards the exhibition. And so you must have been conscious of that. So how did you discuss that and how did you address that? Maybe Ruben can also come in again. Where are you?
Ruben.
Ruben, wake up. Ah, there he is. And we're waiting for the sound.
Yep,
yeah, he's
there
back.
I am. Yeah. No, we did think about this angle of how to represent the country. I think as I work for news media,
Exactly.
I'm as a photographer, I know that there are a lot of sensitive stories that the Dutch audience would like to know more about, like stories on sensitive topics. Censorship itself, for example, is always a topic that fascinates the Dutch audience on how that works in China, and that's something we also like to discuss, but I think we grabbed the opportunity with this exhibition to go for the middle ground, right? Mm-hmm. Instead of these flat surfaces that Yining was talking about, it often focuses on these issues of, either very sensitive part or, sometimes also propaganda part. So you have these very extreme issues, and they have this massive gray layered area in the middle. And we thought we used the platform of BredaPhoto to show that middle ground of, stories from this country.
Yeah, and I think also in a way, thankfully, in recent years, Ruben Terlouw for VPRO has also been showing these slices of life, you might say, in a way. There's more documentary and free-flowing, and here you have made very, very precise choices in the exhibition. What are you showing, by whom, and how you will be showing it. So let's start with discussing, we will be discussing a couple of photographers and their work within the exhibition. And I think Yining will be the first one to introduce a photographer, Chinzer. Would you want to start?
Yeah, I think I still remember the first time I saw Chinzer's work, which was like 2012. She exhibited her work at the Three Shadows Photography Center. When I think that was my first time to see the image of those self-injury boys and girls. Yeah. And the image itself, back that time, is very heavy for me. I mean, it's very strong, powerful, and it's coming from a young female photographer's camera, and actually she did this project really start from 2017, and it splits from two parts, the bearable and beast. So she looking at herself as a self-injury, and she's keeping her camera with her every time when she trying to do something with herself. And that was very heavy for me back that time, but then gradually I understand her a little bit. And from 2010 to 2012, she started Bees, which is the project like she's looking at other young people who trying to, and they made a lot of mental problems in the society, and they're trying to relieve from such kind of behavior. And I think her work is talking about something in between visible and invisible. And I think and back in 2012, she awarded the winner of this Three Shadows Photography Award. And then she started to do different types of work, which is more conceptual, but still she's using a lot of time, to put a lot of effort to making each one of the work. And the reason we choose the bearable and the beast, I think it's really good start to looking at this generation who studied across the world, and then they're coming back to present them work, and also they have their career in China, other than like Xiaoxiao Xu, like Xu Xiaoxiao is living in Netherlands, but there's a group of the artists, they started overseas and they're coming back to living in this art network. So I think Chinzer's work is a good starting point for this exhibition.
Yeah, it's incredibly strong and overpowering. Only even for that presentation, I think everybody should travel to Breda, because it's so daring of her, and to show it in this way, and and to make something which is very vulnerable in such great strength. Thank you, Yining. Ruben, you will be introducing the next photographer, Hua Wei, and a completely different story, you might say.
Funny enough, it was actually Yining who said to me, maybe his work is interesting to show in Breda. I'd never seen his work before up until last year, I guess. And when she showed me, I was like, wow, I instantly fell in love with the work. So he's a photographer. He's based in Chongqing, which is a mega city in inland of China. And what he's been doing for many years, he has been photographing an amusement park that is called the Foreigner Street. It's a very interesting story. That theme park did not have an opening time, so it was open 24/7. And it originally started as a compound for a real estate agent to sell property, but it did not really work, and the foreigners did not really come to that street. But it was, a bit of a failure. But because of a failure, there were many opportunities for people to start their own business. It became lively because of its failure. And the funny thing is that it became quite attractive as a theme park for being so organic in its growth. So it was not a big commercial planning thing. It was actually the growth of another attraction there and another one there. And in that theme park, Hua Wei, the photographer, he found Mr. Sun. We see him on the picture here. He was homeless, but he found a home in the theme park. So he was living in the theme park. And you can say the photographer looked at him as a guru, as somebody who has like the future in mind, or, you can say he was a bit of a lunatic. But they became good friends. So from time to time, they eat a hot pot in the theme park, and it's a very Chongqing thing to do. And he has been following him as the guru of this park for many years. and with his snapshot camera, so it's a classic 35mm film with a small flashlight on it. It's a very simple camera, and it works very effectively well. You see this, you get into this weird world in which this guy is God, and it's in a way of like with all these theme park attractions that with every picture you think, where the hell is this? How can you photograph this? It's just it's just flabbergasting in its craziness. But you know, behind the project, I think is a strong will to show, you know, it's a celebration of organic life, of stuff that can actually happen. So it's almost, if you talk to the photographer, you can almost see it as, you know, he's not a big fan of big commercial shopping malls where things are planned for you. He's a big fan of this kind of environment in which things are possible and people go their own way, and you know, one thing happens after the other. And I think that's ultimately what the project is about.
Yeah, it seems also, if you see the movie, we will have a clip of it, I think, in a minute. Also a celebration of somebody who is very, very strongly held on to a complete individualist stance, and to how somehow manage to survive outside of society. At least that's what it looks like.
True, which is very exceptional. I mean, I guess in the Western world, in the Netherlands, it would be different as well. But I think in China, these sets, these rules of how you should live are quite tight. And to break through from them and to follow a person who does, it's a very interesting concept. And the film actually is a fiction film that he made, that the whole film can be seen at the BredaPhoto. It's about 14 minutes, I believe. But basically, it's him having a conversation with Mr. Sun, and they're having a hot pot together.
Shall we see the clip a little bit?
Yes.
This is another.赢了，赢了，我们全部是人质，对完了，那差不多。哎，然后六亲不认，还差点离，刚刚 OK 零，谢谢，拜拜。哎，100块钱是你的，还是100块钱，一个说的100块钱，还是100块钱，加在一起都是自己，对完了。烂死了！给啊，全部叫完一起给。那还没开始，有没饭没有？有，那没问题。怎么吃就是自己，然后又赢了。是了自己一个品牌0而已啊，又死了。哎，比较管理，比较品牌。给现在科学不相信老头儿，不相信年轻人。老子比你妈妈妈皮的大，说道理，就这样子，结果就被砍下去，枪毙了，加2毛7是那个里，老妈妈的要人了的呀。他那攻击害了你上来，我老子吓死你妈回去了你！没事的恭喜，进了队，不知道是真的还是假的，是不是跑到哪个子的外去抬去了你？一摸死了，我他都下去，叫不知道的名字，叫我自己。你相信吗？相信。我相信叫100码的而已就没了，他进了他了，叫10级而已，你别算了你。人力升天叫顺风灵，加在一起叫宝皮龙。而已，非要个铁甲为龙，非说去，日你妈批老子真的是断头台，吃不死呀你！这不相信自己。特一博说了一句话，他说谁个会创立一个品牌？他说讲那个品牌之后，一个批号拿来去了，叫什么的哟， 他说爬里马尾是有，那里马尾就在给。好，人家玩的是人家那些啥，我要
Okay. Yeah.
Great clip.
It's fantastic. Yeah, and actually, I can understand the sort of the guru-like attractiveness he sort of emanates. You can't stop watching him, and I really was wondering what was in that hot pot. It looked actually quite good, but I was also thinking maybe rats. You know, it's sort of this double. You have this double feeling. It looks glamorous and horrible at the same time. Right now, we will move to really it's the cliche, but something completely different. We're going back to Yining, and she will talk about Ren Hang, Chinese photographer, maybe probably one of the best-known photographers in the West of this exhibition. I think, at least in the Netherlands, he also had a big show at Foam a few years ago, and sadly he's no longer here. But you will probably tell us also why we are seeing the works we are seeing of him in this exhibition.
Yeah, I think Ren Hang is one of the most controversial artists in this generation, and he was born in 1987 in a suburban place of Changchun, and then he moved to Beijing in the early 2000s and stayed there until his death in 2017. So he is famous in taking photographs of the nude pictures of his friends, and then I think he's most productive photographer over that period of time. He produced a lot of books, and also he had well received feedback from the West. But for this exhibition, Ruben and I, we had a long discussion, and for many times, do we really need to show his work again? Repeatedly to show the work he already showed to the West. So when the time Ruben and I, we went to the big church, and I saw there's a lot of vitrine. It's not a vitrine, it's niche inside the church. So I think it's the good place for us and for the people who know or who don't know Ren Hang to give him a perspective on the work he did before, but it's also very controversial to show a lot of new pictures within the church. And we selected 3 body of work. It's not a real work, but it's a work, and it's a photograph he took over between 2010 until 2013. So it's a moment when a lot of creative young people living in Beijing. So we have photograph of Joko, who is also a photographer doing a lot of experimental work. So Ren Hang took a lot of photographs of Joko in many places, and we have a good communication since then. And also we have Huang Jiaqi, who is the Ren Hang's boyfriend, and we also really had this controversial gazes towards each other. And also we have 6ix9ine and his wife. They are both creative people living in the music scene in China. So when Wang Fang having a pregnant, and the spontaneously think about Ren Hang is the best people to take the photograph of them. So we having this private pictures from this couple, other than a huge collection of photographs from the galleries. So we want to use this way and also add some poetry from Ren Hang to give him a memory. And I think it's from both of us, but also we want to show a special respect to his short-lived life.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful.
And also I want to add, Ren Hang is not. Thank you. Sorry, I think Ren Hang is not the only one who dared to take this kind of photograph. basically we have many young people also doing this kind of experimental like nude photographs. But Ren Hang, how can I say it's a lucky one, or I don't know. He was spotted first by the Western eye, and then.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think yourself?
I don't know. It's quite complicated.
Why are his photos picked out or seen as more special?
Ruben, you have answer for that?
I think for every photographer, it's kind of an achievement the moment you see one or you see 3 to 5 pictures, and you immediately connect it with a name, right? So he has a very strong signature in his work, so that makes it very recognizable, and I think that's an achievement on itself. I mean, there's not many photographers who can do that you show a couple of pictures and then you say, oh, that's Ren Hang, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's extremely strong.
I think so. And can you just, because it's sort of taken as a given that his photos are controversial, but let's say maybe in a Dutch context they would be less controversial. Why would they be so controversial in China? And then also I was wondering, looking at the pictures in the church, that these artists, friends of his, are prepared to show themselves so nakedly and sexually in exhibition spaces, because these are of course private photos, but I've seen photos of Ren Hang that have this theme, that have the nakedness, the sexual excitement clearly visible. So no, let's say why is it ultimately so controversial?
Shall I answer that? I mean,
yeah.
It's quite clear. I mean, photographing it and having an interest into it, that's all fine, right? So people like Ren Hang himself had a very strong interest of shooting this. I think publishing this kind of material in China, that's the problem, right? The moment you show it either online or publish it, that's very limited, right? But photographing it and having an interest into it, like Ren Hang had, that's something he had a strong interest into, and he kept following it in a very authentic way. So, and also he photographed mostly his friends and people who they recognized with him, like, yeah, that's the real him. He has a real interest into this, and people felt at ease to be photographed by him.
Okay. We're talking with you, and we're going to move to a next story again, something very, very different. It's more about a publishing house and the importance, I think, of independent publishing houses for photography in general, I think, and particularly in China. Could you tell something about oh, I can't pronounce it, sorry.
Ja, Xiaoxiao. Ja, dit is een lastige. Ja, ik ga het iets kort houden, want ik zie al dat we behoorlijk...
Ja, maar het gaat goed. Het gaat redelijk goed. Ja.
Gaat goed, oké, heel goed. Nee, sorry, I have been interested in the photo book, obviously, since I made the Chinese photo book project 5 years ago. And the contemporary photo book world has been growing in China, I would say. I mean, there's more interest, there's more body of works that can be published, there's more opportunities for young photographers to get their work published. And there's one publisher in China that really stands out, I would say, that is Xiaoxiao. There are a couple of others, but he has been doing this very consistently since 2007. He started helping out a friend to sell his book. But I would say every young photographer in China nowadays, they really want to be published by his publishing house. He built up a good name, and I guess that has to do that he's very consistent. He has a high quality if it comes to photo book or photography projects that he can publish. And also, he's very international. So he does go to Unseen, for example, the photo fair in Amsterdam, but also to Paris, in New York. So he is very exceptional as well in bringing his books abroad. And I think the same thing that we're tapping into in the Netherlands by making this exhibition, there's quite a need. There's a hunger in the Western world to get to know these stories and to see what's going on in China. So I think he's having a very clear function of making good photography seen in China itself and also abroad.
you were speaking about making good photography seen, and that it's an imprint, let's say, that it's an honor as a photographer to be a part of. But you also published this book with him, which is actually something completely different.
Yeah, no, it's something completely different. Well, the thing is, I mean, this book we made specially for BredaPhoto, right? So the only reason it's at the table, it's in the show, is because I have been saying to Yining, like, I think what I want in the show as well is a celebration of a contemporary photography that is not necessarily artistically meant. So this is a commercial photography.
Yeah.
It's from the e-commerce huge website in China, one of the biggest, Taobao. And it's basically celebrating its photography culture, its photography language, its low budget photography that it's just very amusing to see. And it gives a glimpse of contemporary society in China right now.
Brilliant, thank you. We're going to the next, I'm moving back to Yining. Go Ying Guang and her projects. We will. Where is Yining?
Can I add
there
something?
She's back. Yes.
With the photo book thing. So I think by the time Ruben published the Chinese photo book, I published another one, but independently, called 50 Contemporary Photo Books from China, 2009-2014. So I think both of us, we're using different ways to document the photo book thing in China. And since that time, like from 2015 to until today, it's a really blossom in the photography publishing. We can see many art book and fair in China. We have been seeing a lot of awards dedicated to photography books. So I think it's quite interesting to see how Chinese people are reacting to book form. So, and then coming back to Ying Guang's work. Mm-hmm. So I think four years ago, she sent me she sent me an email to ask me and look through her final project. So she made this project in Shanghai Renmin Park. And you can see from the images, like a lot of people holding, a lot of parents, they holding the seaweed of their kids. And it's really humorous because I never seen this thing in my life, but from her work. So it's kind of a slice of Chinese reality coming to my face.
It's a marriage market, right?
It's called the Marriage Park because every Sunday or weekend there are lots of parents gathering together. I don't know, it's a good word, but they want to promote their daughter and son and trying to.
It's good to look at a clip of because we have in the exhibition there are photographs which we see here, but there's also a clip of a longer movie that she made and which went viral on the internet and created a lot of controversy both inside and outside of China, I think. So let's have a look at the clip.
83年，勇气可嘉。
你这个有个最大的缺点，我讲，别人没有的，本人几岁没写
83年。
83年啊。
经济思想均独立，
年龄。
你还优秀的太多了。
没有。
他拿1万、2万一个月工资，拿个3千、4千的，他不愿意的。肯定有50%的女孩。35岁以上的女孩，终身要单身的，因为没有这个人啊，读书读得太高了不好。
本科毕业可以的。
古人说女子无才便是德，
女的就是房型，她就是房子，年纪轻就地段好，漂亮就是房型好。
thank you. I think the video speaks for itself. We're running behind time a little bit now, so I will move to Xu Xiaoxiao, and we will have a talk with her about her work, and then we will have a final discussion. Now, good that we've been talking to China, and now we're talking to each other. And we're going to talk about your project, which is shown in the exhibition, Watering My House by a Spring at the Foot of the Long Wall. It's a very poetic title. Can you explain, where it came from?
Yes, the title comes from an old poem called I Watered My Horse at Long Wall Caves by poet Chen Ling. And the poem narrates the hardships of those laborers who had gone north in order to build the Great Wall during the reign of the first Chinese emperor, Qin Shi Huang. And the wall is described as a place of despair where the dreams and hopes of those laborers faded away, and while their families at home waited for them to return. So Long Wall Cave is a metaphor for the northern border area, the desolate landscape and the war-torn lands. And this atmosphere is still to be found today. And for my project, the title has changed to Watering My Horse by a Spring at the Foot of the Long Wall. I imagined back then how the soldiers on horseback used to fight invaders, and then how they failed, and then they watered their horses by a spring. Despite the harsh conditions, there is still some kinds of tenderness, gentleness, and hope in this little small gesture, I think.
That's very beautiful. And why did you choose the Great Wall as the subject of your research by photography?
With photography, I'm trying to explore my Chinese background, and the Great Wall is the ultimate symbol of China. As a child, I often heard how glorious it is, and but during my journey along the wall, I have discovered the Great Wall is merely a ruin. Some people who live there, they even think it is an old, useless thing. And many parts of the wall have not been protected and repaired properly, so it's damaged and even disappearing. What I have tried to do with my project is to look through the stereotypical image of the wall as a symbol of power, because actually the wall was supposed to be a defense against the invaders, but yet it failed in its military function. People came and went, the soldiers and merchants. They breached it, bringing with them different cultures, languages, and foods. It is a place where people have been living, working, and preserving traditions for centuries. And in my opinion, these people are defining the wall. And that is why I have focused my camera on the daily life of those people.
And how did you execute your project? How did you go about it?
I took my first journey in the spring of 2017. I set off from the beginning of the wall, Shanhai Pass, which is by the sea, in northeast province Hebei. And in late summer, beginning of autumn, I went again, and this time westwards to the low plateau of Shanxi and Shanxi, and my third trip brought me to the deserts of Gansu by Jiayu Pass, that is the end of the Great Wall. And the Four Seasons is a symbol of the cycle of life, because throughout the seasons you can see how people live and which traditions they have. And in order to provide a rich look on both the traditions and the daily life, I combined my photos with found materials. I can show you some example on this page.
Yeah.
And these are pages from an old military atlas of the war and handwritten traditional folk tales. And in addition, I photographed many cultural relics that were found along the wall. And these relics are weapons used by soldiers who garrison the wall, or daily objects or decorations used by the soldiers and their relatives. And the items offer a glimpse of the living condition of people along the wall in ancient time.
And I'm going to skip one question. I'm warning you. We're going to the next one, because these objects and maps and everything that you're also included in the project and shown, they have something to do with a surprise actually you found when you something unexpected that you came to the and what became very important for you.
Yes, the war caretakers. The war caretakers are villagers who had devoted their lives to prevent the war from damage. Actually, their ancestors were the labels who built the wall, so they see it as their duty to protect it, despite the low payments of the government, only 10 euro per month. But one of them, Liang Qingli, from Yumuling village in Hebei, he is in his 30s and he has been a war caretaker for 10 years now. He said he is proud of his job, but he worried about the vandalism, especially the tourists who scribble on the wall and they leave their rubbish on the ground, and there is also this natural erosion. And seeing these lights, the wall is not some mighty construction that fills our imagination.
So we're now gradually coming back to the theme of our talk this afternoon and of the exhibition in a way, the difference between perception of the wall as something glorious and impressive and actually the reality of daily life. You've been to the exhibition. What were your impressions of the show?
Yeah, I myself like the exhibition. Many of the works is about individual lives, which results in an intimate and personal image. I have a connection with that. But people around me react differently to the exhibition. Chinese friends think it's beautiful, it's refreshing to see all those small stories. They are sometimes funny, sometimes confronting, and sometimes moving. When it comes to China, it doesn't always need to be about politics.
Exactly.
And another friend, he is also impressed, but he thinks as a visitor you will get more complete image of China if more critical works are shown. So different reactions.
Well, we have some audience reactions. There also some audience members have been interviewed, and I think now is the time for that small clip. Yeah.
It gives you a different view on the landscapes, on the people, on the creative expression of the artists, of the photographers. It gives China a very humane side, almost a side that we don't see a lot in the mainstream media nowadays.
First of all, it's really a beautiful church. It's also, if you don't like photographs, go to the church. But I like it, but you need a lot of time for it, for the pictures, because every 10, 20 pictures are of a different artist, and I always have to get a little bit in the atmosphere of what that artist wants to tell.
The general impression is that it shows a small part of China. Actually, I also saw that introduction that most people are living in modern technology society, but I think most of things here showing the other part, which is of course there, but it feels like only focus on that part.
Last bit was not very easy to hear, but she generally said it's not showing the complete picture, I think. That's what she said, and then it's sort of fragmented. And we also have, maybe we can move on to that immediately, some reactions from Dutch media and from Chinese social media. Starting with a review in the Volkskrant by Merel Bem, and with one specific remark that I think Ruben picked out on, might want to comment on. It's the next one. Volgende slide. Yeah. You want to explain why you picked that out, Ruben?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I mean, I think it's a matter of. I think if you see it from a Dutch point of view, you use your own context of of giving it value, right? So I guess it's a very fair point. She's like, yeah, some of the images. I'm not sure which ones she refers to, but let's say, I think either Chinzer or Ren Hang, is that using the body as a way of expressing yourself, of showing more, that has become a cliche in in the photography world. And I think that's something that might be true, right? That is something that's going on, and at the same time we do see it happening, and it's both of these worlds can exist at the same time. So it can be a cliche for one part of the audience, and at the same time, if we see Ren Hang at work, or if we see Chinzer at work, it might still be very interesting to see that. So it's very interesting how you get these both views in one mind.
You want to add something, Yining, to Ruben's reaction?
I feel it's a pity that Ruben and I couldn't come to the church to speak to the people. I mean, it's really sad. Like, I think this exhibition will bring the platform, at least, for people to feel this kind of complicity, either from the body of works that we are choosing from the photographers who did in last 10 years, or we can see different types of China. So I think we achieved what we want to present to the audiences in the Breda. So for me, for Ruben, that's exactly what both of we want to share. Yeah.
And we also have a reaction because you posted about the exhibition on Chinese social media, and there are reactions from China as well. And this one, the next slide, is a typical reaction, I think. Can you show the next slide? Yeah. So they're saying actually it's not glorious enough, maybe.
Yeah, can I react to that?
Please,
I really like
yes, do that.
Yining actually sent this one to me, but it's a little bit similar to the last comment we heard from the couple in the video we just saw. Is that basically I think there's still the first kind of gut feeling from a Chinese audience side is that you don't wash the dirty laundry outside, right? Yeah. So there's a gut feeling of of a certain no, but I want things to look more beautiful, right? So, and I think a Dutch audience has a different view upon this. They don't want propaganda. They want a realistic image of what's going on in the country. Yeah. And these two things they clash sometimes, right? It's not, you cannot have this only beautiful side and and have a realistic view. And at the same time, you don't want to go as far as having this very negative approach on everything from China is bad, right? So, I mean, in the end, that middle ground that we have been searching for is also rather large, and there's still much more material we would love to show.
Well, I think that's actually an incredibly clear conclusion, concluding statement on what this exhibition is about and why people should come and see it. If you want to stay away from one cliche and stay away from the other cliche and actually look through the windows and the lenses of the photographers you have chosen at a generation that is now important and active in China, about their stories, about what concerns them, how they look at the world, how they experience their lives, and how they experience maybe sometimes the history, sometimes the reality, sometimes let's say the outside and the inside of life in China. I think, yeah, we're at 5 o'clock. And maybe we can continue the conversation on social media, but not here anymore. I want to tell anybody who hasn't been, come to Breda, take the opportunity to look at the photographs and listen to the stories, also in the texts and also in the films that the artists are telling you about China. And I want to thank you both, Ruben, Yining, Xiaoxiao, sitting here at the table. Yeah, thank you all for watching. I think I've already said most of what I was supposed to say about coming to Breda. Just more information can be found on the BredaPhoto website. And I need to say something, but that's gone. Oh yeah, here it is. There will be another artist talk next Sunday afternoon, and it will be about the work of photographer Jan Hoek. It's called Power to the Models, and it's exhibited in the Stedelijk Museum Breda. And the host of this session will be my dear friend Hasna El Marouti, so that's great. So go to the Breda website and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Turumbático. Turumbático. Ok. Bueno, chao.